Hi, I'm Lance.
And I'm Joe.
And we're the SAR Guys.
And today we're going to talk to you about a recent trip we had. It was a combination trip and a SAR activation.
Absolutely.
And talk about fuel range. We're going to talk about fuel because that became a pretty big issue for me.
Yeah, got a little pucker factor going on there.
Yeah, we did. So what really happened was Lance and I we videotaped that morning, and we hadn't done an introduction. And I said, let's go for a motorcycle ride, and we'll go into the woods and do an introduction. And so I jumped on my bike. I didn't bother to fuel up or anything. I didn't put any gear on there. I just took off. I had my camera gear, and I went over to where Lance lives, about 10 miles away from here. And we got there, and I met Lance at the boathouse. And what did Lance tell me?
We got an activation. Well, actually, no. I heard, because I'm a volunteer firefighter also, and I heard that there's a call out in the woods for someone that's injured. And I'm like, hey, Joe, why don't we be like everybody else? Let's go be looky-loos. And if we can help out, we'll help out, and it'll be fun. And so we get out there, which is, what was it, 17, 18 miles?
It was 17 miles.
Yeah.
It was actually more than that because we had 9 miles to get to Elk City and then another 17 miles up the Harlan Road.
Yeah.
So what was that, probably 30-ish miles?
Yeah. So it was a good little ride out there. And anyways, long story short, we were able to help out. We actually hit an activation. Our coordinator went out there and activated us, and then next thing you know, it's like, well, SAR's on scene, you know, and we didn't really necessarily have all our gear, but we were able to help out. And then as teams came, they brought more gear and brought your gear.
Right.
And I had my fire gear on the truck, so I just used it, and so it worked out really good.
Yeah, and we ended up working with the ropes team, and we pulled the patient out. And just before all of our team got there, our coordinator had not put out the directional cones. He put cones on the road to show when we get into the woods where the team members need to go, and he had to put those out. And I said, well, heck, I'll get my motorcycle. I'll just go run down and do that. So that was an added 5-7 miles that I went down to put the cones out for him and get back. And we got all finished with the activation, and I looked at my odometer, and it was right around 90 miles.
Yeah.
And I didn't think I had enough fuel to get back.
Yeah. Still got a ways to go home.
We had a ways to go home. We had, probably a good 30 miles to get home from there. And I didn't have any fuel with me. Yeah. And so I went to the other rescue rigs and things there, and lo and behold, nobody had any fuel. Nothing. I was like, okay, and it's getting dark, and we had to go out on the main highway to get home. We didn't want to go back through the woods the way we'd gone up there. Yeah. So it was touch and go. Actually, one of our team members and our SAR coordinator both followed us back in, and I was able to get all the way into town and get some fuel and then go on the rest of the way. But normally when we're riding, I don't have that issue, but all of the circumstances came together just right.
Perfect storm.
It was the perfect storm, and so I started doing my homework. It's like, okay, I need to be more prepared in the future. Yeah. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
So from the factory, the TW200 is supposed to be getting 78 miles to the gallon. I feel like I'm more comfortable saying about 65 for me on my motorcycle. It's not altered in any way. I'm not super heavy. I'm within the range of what a rider would be. So I say about 65 miles to the gallon. It's got a 1.8 gallon fuel tank, including the reserve tank. So technically you get 156 mile range on it. I have not gotten more than 125, but I've never run all the way out of gas either. So I get to 125, I'm starting to, oh boy,
absolutely.
I start getting a little concerned there. Yeah. So I started carrying these 1,500 milliliter fuel cells, picked them up on Amazon. They're not very expensive. And they are 1.5 liters, which is about 0.4 gallons, which is the same amount of fuel as the reserve tank on the TW. And I figure I get about 25 miles per fuel cell. So between the two fuel cells that I typically carry, that's an extra 50 miles. And that will pretty much get me to a gas station from anywhere we are in the woods. One of them won't quite do it because as the crow flies in Lincoln County, you're probably within 25 miles of a gas station, but you're never going in a straight line. We're in the woods and all over the place. So typically I carry these fuel cells with me, at least one of them, and usually two. And again, on this one particular trip, I didn't carry it. So a lesson learned for me is I'm always packing at least one of these, if not two. Another thing that I had done wrong on this trip, there were a couple of things. I hadn't reset my odometer when I filled the fuel tank. And so I wasn't really sure how much distance I had gone. And the other was that I didn't top off my tank before I went over to meet with you, which I always do. I just didn't happen to have fuel at home, and I don't like to go to the gas station and top off and put, you know, a quarter of a gallon or a half a gallon of fuel into the tank. That seems kind of silly.
It does.
They look at you funny, like, why are you here? You know, so
it's already bad enough that it's only 1.5 gallons anyways.
So the lesson learned for me was every time I go for a ride, I'm topping the tank off. I don't care where I'm going, what I'm doing, I'm topping it off. I'm setting the odometer every time. And I'm carrying at least one fuel cell with me to give me that extra range because I just never know what's going to happen.
Absolutely. And I don't carry a fuel cell. I'm going to think about it more. And it's one of those things that if you top it off where we live, typically we're okay. It's just, but there's always that what if time frame. And I think that that's what kind of highlighted for us that day is like, well, what if you have the brain fart and you go out in the woods and you didn't really think about it ahead of time or it just didn't work out? So I know I've talked about it a lot of do I or do I not get a fuel cell? And so I think I'll have to revisit that once again.
Well, and it's one of those things where I'm not carrying a tire kit, but I'm carrying two fuel cells. So one for me and one for you.
Yeah, there you go. The buddy program.
There we go.
I'll do the tire stuff, you do the fuel cells. Perfect.
Well, between the two of us, we got one brain enough to be successful, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, well, we hope we found this little discussion useful. And I think we're going to have to do another discussion about the tools we carry. And so then that might be a whole other episode. But I think people would look forward to that.
Absolutely. So. And remember, know your equipment. And I know what the factory settings say. Joe gets different range than what I'm going to get. I'm a bigger guy. And then whether or not we have all our gear or don't have all our gear, that's going to shorten it or make it longer too. And so there's lots of variables. We're in a very up and down hilly area. You might be in a flatter area. The factory specs, that's all premium, riding conditions. And so know your equipment, go out and test it out, find out where your maxes are, and then plan accordingly.
Okay, we hope you found this useful, and we will see you out on the road.
See ya.